Was he thinking about my country or the color of my skin? Was he thinking about my religion or the way I worshiped him? Did he create just me in his image, or every living thing? When God made me, when God made me, was he planning only for believers, or for those who just had faith? Did he envision all the wars that were fought in his name? Did he think there was only one way to be close to him? When God made me, when God made me, did he give us the gift of love to say who we could choose? When God made me, when God made me, when God made me, when God made me, did he give me the gift of voice so some could silence me? Did he give me the gift of vision, not knowing what I might see? Did he give me the gift of compassion, help my fellow man? When God made me, when God made me, when God made me, when God made me. Good morning. Welcome to Lee Summit Christian Church. This morning we continue our journey toward Easter, and we're traveling along with some of Jesus' original disciples as we do so in the sermons. If you're joining us online, we're glad to see you too. Later in the service, we're going to be celebrating communion, and you do not have to be a member of our church or a member of our denomination to participate. All are welcome to participate, so please feel that you can join in our communion service when we arrive there. As we begin our worship together, let's turn to those around us and greet each other in the name of Christ with a friendly wave and a smile. And I believe we have a moment for mission.
Good morning. Our church-wide egg hunt is coming up on Saturday, March 30th at 10 a.m. This is such a funny event where we spread so many eggs out all over the church yard, and we run and gather eggs with our church family and community members. We need some donations to help us get ready. If you would like to donate candy to help us stuff the eggs, please have your donations in by Sunday, March 17th. You can also donate money so we can do the candy shopping for you. You can give this money to Miss Kelly or turn it into the office. Thank you so much for your help to make our egg hunt super fun. We hope to see you all there.
Let's stand and we'll. Oh,
Sorry.
a little too soon.
In fairness, though, how can I really follow that? I should have asked to go before Olivia did. Real quick, just want to highlight, with the Easter season quickly approaching, out on the narthex, you will find a form. There's been a change this year. Instead of Easter lilies, the worship team decided to try a new flower. And part of that was to be considerate of many of our congregation members, because we have received feedback over the years that lilies seem to be very potent for a lot of people's allergies. And so we thought it might look more colorful then to try hyacinths. And so if you would like a hyacinth in honor of loved one this year for Easter, just know that form is out on the narthex, and we look forward to worshiping with you the celebration of Jesus' resurrection later this season. Thanks.
All right, now let's stand and sing some songs together. Gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. Gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside. Gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. 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 Gonna lay down my burden down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. Gonna lay down my burden down by the riverside. Gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. 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 Gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. Gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside. Gonna study war no more. Let us adjust a few things here.
More strings on this guitar.
There are.
Doesn't seem fair.
Oh, let us be the generation of reconciliation and peace, and let us be a world of justice where war and prejudice shall cease. Let us live the truth of love midst the lost and least of these. Let us serve the Lord in unity so others will believe. Let us be the generation of reconciliation and peace. You may be seated.
Good morning, church. Please join me in the call to worship this morning. The world belongs to God. How good and how lovely it is. Love and faith come together. Lord, open our lips, and our mouths shall proclaim your praise. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Loving God, hear our prayers. We all have struggles, joys, and concerns. During the season of Lent, allow us to be renewed in spirit. Strengthen our faith. Let us be eager in doing your will, and allow us to see the needs of our community and our world, and give us the strength to do what is right. Open our hearts to your love. Give us the grace and mercy to forgive and ask for forgiveness. We thank you for spring, for the promise of rebirth and new growth, with the hope of warmer and brighter days. And let us lift up our voices as one, praying the prayer that your Son taught us together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever.
Last week, Kevin mentioned that you are a generous congregation. And why it might be a repeat, I just have to fully affirm that. And I think it's worthy of repeating because I can't say thank you enough for your generosity. As many of you came out last week to our youth trivia and chili night and helped raise over $7,500 for youth missions. So it's a repeat because it's a worthy repeat, and I just truly appreciate your generosity because I know there are so many places we can all be in this day and age, and so the time you took to either prep chili or join teams, I truly appreciate all that you give of your time and your generosity and the ways you do that, not only here for Lee Summit Christian Church, but I know so many of you are active in so many different organizations. Thank you for living out and being the hands and feet of Christ on a daily basis. If you would like to make a donation to the church, as you see up there, there's the narthex stained glass box. You're welcome to drop a donation in on your way out, or if you're joining us online, check out the website, lschristian.org. church.com and click on the donate button and follow the instructions. Let us offer up a brief prayer. Gracious God, truly this church embodies your heart and your mission and generosity, not only for young people in this congregation, but in so many different ways for the people of Lee Summit. I just pray now that you continue to use the funds that are brought in to bring hope to those that are possibly feeling despair this morning. To let those know that are perhaps feeling anxious or alone, that they don't have to be, that there's a place for them. May we continue to live out and be your hands and feet. In your name we pray. Amen.
This time we invite any of our young folks to make their way to worship and wonder. It's good to be together with you in worship this morning. Can I just say that you all look fantastic this morning? Appreciative of the Journey Band, the Journey Trio this morning. They sound amazing. Want to offer also just a brief word of gratitude. Turn to the back to the Finleys in the back and wave a word of gratitude to them, and to Isaiah and Ian. They're doing our technology in the back. We had a small technology hiccup this morning, and they are working through it with patience and grace, and so we are grateful for all of their efforts in the back. As we continue in our most recent series, we find ourselves in the Gospel of Luke. We're in the 9th chapter, verses 51 through 55. When the days drew near for him to be taken up, he set his face to go to Jerusalem, and he sent messengers ahead of him. On their way, they entered a village of the Samaritans to make ready for him, but they did not receive him, because his face was set towards Jerusalem. When his disciples James and John saw it, they said, "Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them?" But he turned and rebuked them. Would you join me in a word of prayer? And now may the words of my mouth, the meditations of each heart, be found acceptable in your sight, God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. If you are joining us for the first time this morning in our most recent series, we're taking some time throughout Lent to explore the lives and the identities of several of Jesus' disciples in anticipation of and preparation for our congregation's performance of the Living Last Supper that'll take place on Monday, Thursday of Holy Week at the John Knox Pavilion. We hope that by exploring several of the disciples more closely, that we will be able to hear and encounter their stories in a new way come the events of Holy Week and Easter weekend. Our first 2 Sundays explored the lives of Nathaniel and Thomas, who both share a common thread. Both Nathaniel and Thomas express a healthy level of skepticism and doubt. We can remember Nathaniel's skepticism. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? And we can remember Thomas' unbelief. Unless I see the mark of the nails in his hands and put my finger in the mark of the nails and my hand in his side, I will not believe. Both disciples rebuffed the witness and testimony of their fellow disciples, instead needing something different from Jesus before they were willing to move forward in their faith journey. This morning we encountered the exact opposite. James and his brother John are among the first disciples called. The text says that as he, Jesus, went from there, the Sea of Galilee, he saw two other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John, in the boat with their father Zebedee, mending their nets, and he called them. Immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. Where Nathanael needs more information and Thomas needs a personal encounter, James and John leave vocation and family and immediately follow. Maybe they had an intuition or a gut feeling about Jesus. Maybe their lives were primed and ready for a drastic change. We don't know their exact motivation, but they dropped what they were doing and followed. James and John, alongside another early adopter, Simon Peter, would go on through the course of the Gospels to become part of Jesus' inner circle. When Jesus restores a little girl to life, only Peter, James, and John are allowed to enter the room. In the story of Jesus' transfiguration, only Peter, James, and John accompany Jesus up the mountainside to pray. When Jesus retreats to Gethsemane before his arrest and betrayal, he brings with him Peter, James, and John. I would imagine, given their swift and complete acceptance of Jesus' invitation, or given their total and unwavering commitment to leave vocation and family and live in the way of Jesus, given their status in the inner circle of Jesus' 12 disciples, that brothers James and John would mirror the behavior and teaching of Jesus more closely than any of the other followers of the way. More than the other disciples, more than the crowds and multitudes that pressed in against him, more than the outsiders who would frequently get it right about Jesus. Isn't that a fair assumption? That the inner three would get it? That the inner three would set an example for the other 9? And what has Jesus been teaching the 12 so far? Jesus has been teaching a radical word of peace. But I say to you who are listening, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. Jesus has been teaching a radical word of tolerance. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Instead, love your enemies, do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return. Jesus has been teaching a radical word of grace. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. These teachings are front and center before the disciples are sent forth. And Jesus offers one final word of instruction before sending them out as apostles. Travel light, accept the hospitality of strangers, and last but not least, whenever they do not welcome you, as you are leaving that town, shake the dust off your feet as a testimony against them. So they departed and went through the villages, bringing the good news and curing diseases everywhere. It sounds like the disciples are having early success. Civility and mutuality and agreeable encounters, acceptance of their witness. That is, until they enter Samaria. We might remember from a few weeks ago that Samaritans are the racial and religious others. We can imagine that this engagement will not go well, and it does not. The disciples are rejected. Their good news is dismissed. Their mission is a failure. How will the disciples deal with this rejection? What were Jesus' instructions for just such an instance? Do you remember? Shake the dust from your feet and move on. Don't take it personal. Water off a duck's back. What is James and John's bright idea? Judgment and violence. Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them? You could almost feel Jesus' disappointment. Have they not listened to his teaching? Have they not witnessed his example? Where on earth did they get such an idea? Well, they did not pull it from thin air. A few verses ago in this same chapter, we read the story of the Transfiguration. We said earlier that Peter, James, and John are present, and there's also a vision of Moses and Elijah, their spiritual forebears. And if we go way, way back to the book of 2 Kings, we would read of an encounter between King Ahaziah and the prophet Elijah. Long story short, the king repeatedly rejects Elijah and the God of Israel. And the first few times it happens, Elijah calls down fire from heaven to consume the king's soldiers. Rejection met with violence. Is this story familiar to James and John? Has a recent vision of Elijah on the mountaintop jogged their memory? How quickly do we forget or willfully ignore the teaching of Jesus and rely upon something else? The text says that Jesus turned and rebuked them. Then they went on to another village. I can remember several years ago now, which feels odd to say out loud, partway into the pandemic, feeling an ever-present, it was a back of my mind feeling of anxiety. Kind of like waiting for the next news headline of a new variant or word of a church member or family member contracting the disease, or the repeated argument about the best way forward globally or nationally or locally. I couldn't quite put a name on it, this feeling, until I heard someone name it in an interview. They called the feeling a low hum of dread. Do you remember that feeling? Or perhaps you still have it. A low hum of dread, awaiting for the next shoe to drop, a sense that bad news was lurking around the corner like the boogie monster, waiting to pounce. My low hum of dread is gone, but it's been replaced with what feels like a low hum of violence. Does anyone else get that sense? The world has always been a violent place. That is nothing new. It just feels like increasingly our response to rejection, be it social rejection or political rejection or religious rejection, is not shaking the dust from our feet and moving on to the next village. It is anger and violence. Anger is not always a bad thing. Anger lets us know that a deeply held conviction or belief has been violated or a relationship has been broken. Richard Rohr recently shared that when managed appropriately, anger helps develop healthy individuals and communities. Rohr has found that anger is very good and necessary to protect the appropriate boundaries of self and others. But this morning, James and John, two of Jesus' inner circle, two who should have known better, get this one wrong. The use of violence to enforce Christian faith is counter to the spirit and teaching of Jesus. Whether that violence be physical altercation or verbal intimidation or social media passive aggression, it is counter to the spirit and teaching of Jesus. How do we deal with rejection? Jesus seems to teach and model. Move on. You do not have to accept every argument that arrives upon your doorstep. You do not have to win everyone to your way of thinking. And I know a lot of you are here in this place because you have been rejected somewhere else. I hope this is a place for you to rest and to heal and to mend and to find the reassurance and the affirmation that you are loved by God. I know some of you are rejected because you attend this church specifically. Open and affirming churches are not exactly all over the place. People probably reject you for it. Oh, you go to that church. For our conservative folks, that usually means that you aren't conservative enough or orthodox enough. Your friends can't believe you attend here. You do not have to defend yourself. You are welcome here. We're glad you're here. Or for our progressive folks, you don't usually feel well enough equipped to argue with people about your faith, or you don't know the right scriptures to quote, or what doctrines to reference, or heck, you don't even know what you believe about God most of the time. Some of your progressive friends and colleagues can't imagine why you even go to church to begin with. You do not have to defend yourself either. You are welcome here. We're glad you're here. Look, we just found something in common, didn't we? What have the disciples offered us so far on our journey? Nathanael and Thomas, James and John. No two followers of Jesus are the same. Why do we expect them all to be? No two followers of Jesus need the same things for belief. Why do we require ourselves to believe and practice the exact same way? No two disciples get it right every single time. Why do we place such unfair expectations upon one another? No two disciples stay the same throughout their journey. They grow, they evolve, they learn, they get it right, they get it wrong. And Jesus never once gives up on them. And when they share their faith, when they offer their unique testimony, when they live and move and breathe as authentically as they know how to be, they're frequently rejected. And the anger wells up within them. They're human. And Jesus says what? Shake the dust off your chucks. The modern philosopher Jay-Z said it a different way. I'll teach you his method this morning. He says, brush your shoulders off. Go ahead. Give it a try. There it is. The next time you're rejected, Shake the dust from your sandals. Brush your shoulders off. And keep being who God has created you to be. Thanks be to God this day.
Thank you, Joy, for the beautiful musical reflection. Is there one more slide, or is our tech cool? All right. So I need to preface communion this morning by I always ask permission to share a story when someone and I are having a conversation over coffee. Just want to make sure, it's okay to publicize details. But I was given permission to share this story, and it's a beautiful reflection of why I come to this table every week. You see, it was really cool to be able to stand up and say, that, all the time and effort put in by the young people, their families, and people who made chili, made this wonderful contribution of $7,500 towards youth missions. That's pretty cool to say. And it's even kind of cool to say that I know now I've given Kevin the opportunity to create a redemption narrative in a future sermon, as his team, if you didn't know, ended up taking home first place this year in trivia. But as cool as those things are, it's not, at the end of the day, what made my heart sing. What made me feel like, you know what, this is worth doing no matter how much time and effort I have to put in. You see, I was having coffee with a congregation member by the name of Dan O'Donnell this week, and we were just reflecting on life, and he was talking about trivia night and how it was just such an enjoyable experience because he got to engage in his team with other people from the congregation that he probably wouldn't talk to on a normal basis. And that, to me, is part of what it's all about. The opportunity to build community, the opportunity to provide the place to build deeper connections, perhaps even with people that we would have never thought imagined possible. After all, we had probably like as young as 5 years old all the way up into 70s and 80s there. And that, to me, is what the beautiful vision of this table is about, is that there's a place here for everyone to be known by their name, to be seen fully who they are. And so that's why I love helping put in the work for nights like trivia and just seeing that opportunity come alive, and thankful for members like Dan who share stories then later about that. And so I hope you know you have a place at this table here this morning. If you haven't caught that from Kevin's message yet, know this is a place for you. As Jesus was gathered with his disciples that evening, he blessed a loaf of bread, he broke it, and he told the disciples that this bread represents my body broken for you. Take and eat. And after breaking and sharing bread, Jesus then lifted the cup and said that this cup represents the new covenant and the promise that God is making all things new through the forgiveness of sins. Take and drink. And so, friends, we remember and celebrate together this morning.
If you have been seeking a place to call your church home and you would like for Lee Summit Christian Church to be that place, know that you are invited. You can find any of the ministry team throughout the week, or you can come forward as we sing our final song. I invite you to stand as you are comfortably able as we sing together.
Weave us together in unity and love. Weave us together, weave us together in love.
say together, our service has ended, our ministry now begins.